MetroPlan Orlando Board meeting to order. At this time, I ask everyone to please silence all electronic devices. In addition, if speaking, please speak directly into your microphone. Make sure you touch the device in front of you so that the audience and the hearing impaired can hear us. Lisa, if someone cannot be heard, please let us know. Always a friendly reminder because we forget. We have two opportunities for public comment. In the beginning, we have public comment on action items, and in the end, we have public comment in the general nature. Again, if anyone is interested in making a public comment, please let Miss Lisa know. And also online, you can also send your notification. I'm going to ask Commissioner Gomez Cordero to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, we're going to move on to some of our updated reports and announcements. I want to start off with the AMPO annual meeting. As chair of the statewide MPOAC, I had the pleasure of attending the AMPO meeting in Cleveland, Ohio in September with Gary Hutman and many MPOs from across the state of Florida. I have to take a moment and say how impressive this was. Pretty much all the transportation minds put together. And what was the most interesting is catching many different states' initiatives, from dealing with the fuel tax, dealing with penny increases for transportation, dealing with mileage based, and also dealing with infrastructure and how weather conditions are affecting our roads and our commutes. Very interesting information all the way from Hawaii to Texas to Virginia. And it's always interesting when certain states, especially in the north and eastern side, are dealing with train issues. They're more of the commuter issues. But it was such an incredible opportunity for us to really get to see firsthand what other states are doing on transportation. And it's great to see how much Florida is very much advancing. I also at this time want to recognize Commissioner Janer, who's going to give us our Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission update. Commissioner Janer, you're recognized.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. The CFCRC met on September 28, 2023 at Lake Central Station. At the beginning of the meeting, the commission honored law enforcement from various jurisdictions on their participation during Rail Safety Week. Rail Safety Week was from September 18th through the 22nd, and it was the largest law enforcement presence to date for education and grade crossing enforcement. The commission heard reports from the system on the Sunrail Advisory Committee, the Technical Committee, the FDOT, Lynx, and Votran. Some key updates included Hurricane Idalia response, the new and improved train to plane connection from Sand Lake Road Station to Orlando International Airport. Ridership continues to increase year over year. It's a slow but steady increase. On-time performance dipped below 90%. There were also updates on the Sunrail transition. The Sunrail transition, the Sunshine Corridor, presentations on Phase 2 North, and the fare collection system. The next meeting of the CFCRC will be on November 16th. Madam Chair, that is my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Janer. Do we have any questions or comments for Commissioner Janer? Seeing none, we appreciate the update and keeping us up to date on everything. I also wanted to share that during Hispanic Heritage Month, I was honored to serve as a panelist for an online event on October 4th, co-sponsored by COMTO and the Latinos in Transit organizations. This was also an incredible opportunity. It was a national panel where we had individuals who are very much seasoned in transportation from across the country and in our own state of Florida. Wonderful opportunity. If you have nothing else to do, you're welcome to see the link and kick around an hour and a half of us talking about food and Latino things. I want to move forward. Commissioner Moore is not here yet, so we're going to move past the Central Florida MPO Alliance, but hopefully we'll have an opportunity to get that information from her and an update. I do want to move on to Blind Americans Equality Day. I had the pleasure of having Commissioner Castano, Commissioner Wilson, and I were at the event on October 19th at the Lighthouse Works. Again, this was a wonderful, beautiful event that all three of us were able to participate. I think one of the most moving things for me is we had one of the speakers speak who became blind due to a car accident. So his retinas exploded and he's been blind for about 6 years. And this gentleman has become a champion in the source of a lot of individuals who lose their sight immediately dealing with suicide and mental health. And it's incredible when you hear these stories and meet these individuals to be so positive and proactive to move blind Americans forward, both in the workforce and in transportation. And us also being able to hear that the details matter and what we get to do here, which is sidewalks, uneven sidewalks, potholes, things not being secure, audible crossings, which is becoming something that we're doing. But I also want to recognize Commissioner Castano for her intake on that event also.
I'm sorry. There, I'm so sorry. So for me, it was a wonderful experience to be able to feel, because we were, blindfolded and then somebody was walking us. At the beginning, I felt comfortable when I started, but when I was going up the stairs and coming down, when I didn't see the rail, that where I was holding, it was very scary. So it's good to share that experience to feel how people with special needs feel. So I will invite you all to be there next year, be part of it so that we have, we support them as well. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yes. I do encourage the board to join us. This year, I was not one that was blinded. I was one that guided. And it was fun because I guided my husband who did not trust me as I guided him. So, and Gary participated, all of us did. And Commissioner Wilson, too bad she's not here to share her thoughts, but it was an incredible opportunity because we did it on campus. So we went upstairs, we went down a slope, and we had to trust, or they had to trust us as we maneuvered through this. So it was fantastic. Thank you so much, Commissioner Castano. Also, the MPOAC met on October 25th. As the chair of the board of MPOAC, we had a phenomenal meeting at the SunTrax facility. If anyone has not had the opportunity to visit the SunTrax facility, it is incredible. It is where they do all the testing. Every type of road mechanism that you could imagine is on this system built by FDOT in the middle of Polk County. And it is a great experience. And it's also nice to know that they are leasing and renting out areas, including Beep, which is in Lake Nona, has space in that area. We spent the morning doing a guided tour of the SunTrax facility. It was also followed by a joint meeting of the MPO staff directors and governing board. We approved the January 27th meeting minutes. We received the executive director's report. We heard agency reports from FDOT and Federal Highway, excuse me. The North Florida TPO provided a demonstration of a new noteworthy practices portal. There was consensus to move forward with the portal. And then something that I'm excited to share that we introduced and I was able to introduce as chair of the board is that we've started talking about a strategic plan for the state MPOs, which there are 27 of them. So we had an interactive workshop with all of the MPOs present, and we look forward to receiving the feedback and putting a plan together so that our MPOs can continue to be strong and work with FDOT. So our next MPOAC meeting will be held January 25th, 2024 in Orlando at the Florida Hotel. I also encourage and invite anyone that may be interested in learning more, especially on our strategic plan, which a big part of it and the clear message was advocacy and education, teaching our electeds, teaching our boards what we're doing and how that's impactful. I'm going to move on to FDOT Mobility Week event. I also had the opportunity with the TDLCB board to participate in the Swan Autonomous Shuttle demonstration on November 1st. Man, I've been doing a lot of mobility stuff. It was really great. We were able to go on the Swan downtown that's been established at the downtown UCF campus and goes to links and returns. And what was wonderful is that we had individuals who were in a wheelchair, who had constraints on mobility of walking to join us. And what they did is they had us share exactly what the needs are and where they're lacking. One interesting fact that no one thought about till we were on that was audible information again. So we look forward to seeing how that moves forward and what that feedback will entail as they continue to grow. And now I want to move on to the MetroPlan Orlando safety moment. At this moment, we will hear from Mike Wilson for this month's safety moment on pedestrian safety. Mr. Wilson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, everyone. As the chairman noted, Pedestrian Safety Month is October at the federal level. And as I do in all my safety moments, I give you a little bit of data in the background to set the stage. We have about 78 fatal pedestrian crashes per year in our metro area. That's actually more deaths because that's the number of crashes, and some of them have more than one fatality. And as you can see, that's about 28% of our total fatalities. And similarly with serious injuries, we have over 160. Again, some of those are multiple, and about 10% of all of our serious injuries. What's really notable is that 82% of our fatals and over half of our serious injuries happen at night. And when we look at those nighttime crashes in more detail, we find that 2/3 of them are not happening at an intersection. Another thing that's notable is they tend to happen on high-speed roads, irrespective of lighting. More than half of our pedestrian deaths happen on roads posted at 40 to 45 miles per hour. There's some ongoing research at the University of Western Michigan. Dr. Ron Van Houten, who helped us develop the Best Foot Forward program, and I'm a colleague with him on a national committee, has been doing research on pedestrian and bicyclist crashes at night. And what they found by going out with actual light meters to the crash locations was that even on roads with street lighting, most of these fatal crashes were happening in a dark hole in a dark spot where the light wasn't covering. So this speaks to two different issues for us as planners and policymakers. One is how well are we lighting the roads, the obvious side, but it also speaks to what we can do as pedestrians if we're out there on the streets. Often pedestrian might have to travel a long distance to get to the nearest signalized crossing. And so that's why we see many people crossing mid-block. But what they can do, if it is a lit road, is go to the nearest street light, which is usually not that far away, so that they've got a little extra layer of conspicuity there. And, another thing is that while people have talked about, people, carrying lights, I've kind of poo-pooed that all over the years. It's like, that's not really very practical. But, we all carry a light these days, right? And it's a fairly bright one. So you just pull this out of your pocket and, wave it at the cars, the approaching cars, to give that extra level of safety. So that concludes my presentation for my safety moment for this month.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from Mr. Wilson? Yes, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you. I'm saddened to see that the burden seems to go always back to the pedestrian. I know we talked about the high speed in the night. Has there been any discussion about research on putting that onus back on the actual drivers at night, that maybe a speed limit during the day and a speed limit at night are two different things, knowing that there's a higher risk of this type of fatality at night? I just feel like the pedestrians always take the blame for being victims of accidents.
Yeah, that's actually something we looked into, was reduced nighttime speed limits. And that's something I've actually brought up in prior presentations. Tucson has actually done that and has had it in place for many years, but we actually worked with them to look at their data, and we didn't really find any significant speed reduction with that approach. So we've got to do more than just change the signs. And yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Wilson, you'll be proud to know that now as chair of MPOEC, we start all our meetings with a safety moment too. And it's been well received through our MPOs. So that's great. And we'll continue to work on that. Thank you so much. We're going to move on now to the executive director's announcements. Mr. Huttman, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good morning again, Chairwoman Uribe and board members. This morning, I want to welcome a new board member of sorts. Many of you will remember Stephen Smith, who represented for a number of years the Orlando Sanford Airport. And Tom Green had to step down, excuse me, from the board. And so Stephen will be joining us now as the representative. from the airport. So welcome, Mr. Smith. It's good to see you and good to have you. This morning we have Commissioner Arrington and Mayor Woodruff are both with us, but they're virtual, they're online. We are expecting Tim Weishire. He's en route. He ran into a little bit of traffic getting here, but he's expected as an alternate for Carson Good this morning. We also have Jack Adkins here representing DOT in place of Secretary Tyler. And then I'd also like to introduce our new DOT liaison. Amy Beckman is with us in the audience, if you want to just give a wave. Thank you, Amy. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We want to make note of a very important event we are starting to promote. Mark your calendars, everyone, for our first installment of Vision Zero Central Florida Safety Speaker Series. That will take place on Wednesday, a week from today, November 15th, from 9:30 to 10:30. It is uniting on a quest for zero traffic deaths. It's a virtual event. It honors World Remembrance Day for road traffic victims. It's a high-profile global observance to remember the millions who have been killed and seriously injured while traveling on roadways throughout the entire world. And to acknowledge the suffering of all those that are affected by that. We will also have MetroPlan Orlando staff share what Vision Zero Central Florida is and what we are doing in the region to help eliminate traffic deaths on our roads. Registration is now open and we have flyers in your supplemental folders that you can take with you. There's a QR code there for you to register today if you'd like. But we hope to see you virtually on the 15th. And also, in the interest of safety, we are currently working with the DOT Safety Office on a regional safety summit, combining our Vision Zero efforts with their work on creating a district-wide safety plan. We're holding January 31st for that event. It's probably going to be a half-a-day event. We just don't know if it's going to be morning or afternoon, but just wanted to make you aware of that. The Best Foot Forward program recently completed their quarterly high visibility enforcement operation. They included 19 crosswalks throughout the region. They had participation from each of our 3 counties, as well as from Apopka, Oakland, Orlando, and Winter Park in Orange County, Kissimmee and St. Cloud in Osceola County, and Castleberry and Longwood in Seminole County. The enforcement resulted in 93 warnings and 99 citations, for a total of 192 contacts with drivers on the importance of safety. So a lot of contacts were made through that event. Then I want to make an announcement about the UCF lecture series. It's tomorrow night at the Dr. Phillips Academic Commons Room 106 on the downtown campus of UCF. The lecture is from 6 to 7:30, and the speaker is Angie Schmidt. Commissioner Uribe, this is the same speaker that we heard at the AMPO conference. She's a Cleveland-based urban planner and author. She recently wrote a book entitled Right-of-Way Race Class and the Silent Epidemic of Pedestrian Deaths in America. She'll be discussing her work and then participate in a panel discussion that will include Mike Wilson from MetroPlan Orlando. Finally, I want to introduce our newest employee, Maria Padavani. Maria has recently filled the fiscal manager position that had been vacant for about 15 months. So we're very happy to have her on board. And then I want to congratulate Sally Morris and Mike Wilson on some work anniversaries, kind of milestone anniversaries. Sally recently celebrated 10 years with MetroPlan Orlando. Sally works in the finance department and helps us maintain the financial credibility that we all appreciate. And she assists also with our meetings as needed. And then, of course, Mike, you all know, celebrated 30 years with us, and he's a familiar face to the board. He regularly presents information related to bicycles and bicycle and pedestrian safety. So congratulations to both of them. Then as we approach 2024 and you consider appointments for the new year, I want to encourage you to appoint multiple alternates to the board when you have the capacity to do that. We would then give each new alternate an MPO orientation and prepare them to fill in when necessary. We always like to have each jurisdiction properly represented at our meetings, and it would also help us in making sure that we have quorum so that we conduct our business. And then finally, in addition to the Vision Zero flyers that I mentioned earlier, your supplemental folders also include a draft copy of the 2024 legislative positions. But that information will be discussed later in the agenda this morning. So, Madam Chair, that completes my announcements.
Thank you, Gary. Do we have any questions or comments for Gary at this time? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move forward. It's always a pleasure to have Mr. Adkins here joining us from FDOT. So we look forward to hearing your updated report. Mr. Adkins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, board members. Pleasure to be here. Secretary Tyler lets me out every once in a while. So it's good to be here. I was going to hit on Mobility Week, and I do have a few things, but Chairwoman Uribe did a much better job than I would have in sharing those experiences. But with Mobility Week, we just concluded it. It's the 8th annual, and it ran from October 27th to November 4th. It's when the department partners with agencies around the state to promote transportation safety. And in Central Florida, 53 events were held this year in partnership with 90 of our partners. And since its inception in 2016, more than 900 mobility weeks have been held statewide. And that event is getting traction and increases each and every year. All 6 transit agencies in District 5 participated in Tri-Transit Day during Mobility Week, and it promotes transit and rider appreciation events. Sunrail, Lynx, Lake Express, Space Coast Area Transit, and SunTran offered free fare days on November 2nd, and Votran had appreciation dates on November 2nd as well. And I believe, as already was mentioned, both Sunrail and Lynx experienced higher ridership, and that has been continuing. The blind experience, Chairwoman Uribe already discussed that, and that was a great event. And then on October 27th, Mayor Dyer led a bicycle ride through to highlight some bicycle path projects on Corinne. And Mayor Brian Nelson also led an eco bike ride featuring the Lake Apopka Trail. Commissioner Uribe noted the SWAN program, which is also extremely important. And then all 5 Central Florida MPO TPOs participated in hosted transit, cycling, and walking events as part of Mobility Week. So it has really grown over the years, and we certainly appreciate the support that MetroPlan gives us and all of you participating as well. Also want to thank Mike for his safety moment. And again, mentioned that October is Pedestrian Safety Month. And last year in Central Florida, we lost someone who was walking every 53 hours, which is, when you start thinking about that, is very sobering. And the good news is in 2023 so far, that number is trending downward to 59 hours. So we are making some improvements. In 2022, 52%, 86 of 166 pedestrian fatalities in District 5 occurred in the 3 MetroPlan areas. And then, as you all know, the Daytona metro area is leading the nation. So those are things that we continue to work on, and we continue to try to improve and incorporate in our projects when we can. Lighting has become very, very important, and we're including that. Lastly, I would just like to mention that next Tuesday, November 14th, is National Seatbelt Day. And strangely, and this one is tough for me because I'm in the generation that didn't wear seatbelts when I was growing up. And then when it was enacted in law, now I don't even think about it. You just buckle your seatbelt. But we're seeing this trend of people not using their seatbelts, and that's very disturbing. And we're trying to get education out. And you know, the fatalities that occur, 45% of those can be reduced if they would just use what's in the car provided, nothing special. And that one's a bit of a head scratcher that we continue to work on. Also, I want to mention the Sunshine Corridor public meetings will be coming up in December, and there's going to be 3 that will be in person and one virtual meeting that will be held. So Tuesday, December 5th, our event will be held at the Taft Community Center, 9450 South Orange Avenue. Wednesday, December 6th, will be at the Holiday Inn, 10771 International Drive. And then Thursday, we're still waiting on the final confirmation for that one, but it will either be at the Holiday Inn or another site on South International Drive. And then the virtual meeting will be available through GoToWebinar link, and that'll be posted later. And then finally, Madam Chairwoman, I wanted to mention our work program presentation that is coming up. Kathy Alexander Corbin from our work program unit will be presenting our work program a little later. However, I just kind of want to mention that we're still facing issues with inflation, issues with bids coming in higher, issues with supply chain, cost of asphalt is up. Hopefully, we're starting to see those things not go down, but at least maybe start to level off a little bit because they're impacting our program. You've heard Secretary Perdue mention that, we've had the largest work program, but it's taken a significant amount of those funds to just make us whole again with all the bids. And so we right off the top of our allocations, we have to maintain our assets. That's through a lot of our resurfacing programs. And, we're looking at ways to maximize. We're looking at ways to partner with our local partners. Any way we can leverage the dollars together is very helpful. MetroPlan has been very helpful with us and partnering with us on some of those things. So we want to make sure we're putting good products out. We want to make sure we're serving the community needs, but as everybody is, when you have a certain budget, you have to stay within that. So we're trying to be as creative as possible when we get there. So that is my report, Madam Chair, and I will take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. I do want to note that Lorraine Bobo did fantastic at the Lighthouse event when she was there, like she always does. But I see Commissioner Wilson has a question or a comment. Oh, okay. Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from Mr. Atkins? Seeing none, thank you for all the updated information. We appreciate you all the time. I also would be remiss if I didn't say FDOT is very helpful in the lighting, calling those in when you have them on state roads. He's been instrumental in helping us out numerous times, and I encourage all of us here to be on the lookout. And especially with Commissioner Wilson, when you have notated the lighting also, when they're out, they usually don't know. So we need to let FDOT know.
And we
All
try
right.
to respond very quickly when
Yes.
we get those calls. Thank you.
Yes, you do. Fantastic. At this time, we're going to move on to Ms. Lisa Smith for the roll call and confirmation of our quorum.
Yes, good morning. And for the members that are joining us virtually, if you could unmute yourselves for the roll call. Arrington,
Here.
Bates. Here. Bonilla. Castano. Here. Gomez Cordero. Here. Dennings.
Here.
Dyer. Dowless. Wise Hire for Good.
Present.
Grieve.
Here.
Janer.
Here.
Lockhart. Moore. Nelson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Ortiz. Uribe.
Here.
Wilson. Here. Woodruff.
Here.
Zembauer. Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum physically present.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks for those that are online. We're going to move on now to agenda review. Mr. Huntman, you're recognized.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have no changes to the agenda, but do want to call the board's attention to two items. The first is item 9F, and that is the approval of a resolution celebrating the completion of the Wekiva Parkway. That's a significant regional project, and it deserves that acknowledgement. And then item 11F is just a copy of the apportionment plan that the board approved at the September board meeting. That has been prepared and submitted to the state a couple of weeks ago. Our deadline for that was November 14th, so we're ahead of that schedule, but that's included in your packages. The state now has until December 15th to do their review and pass it on to the governor's office. We hope to get the approval of the apportionment plan in January. And then if we do, we'll have new board members sitting at the first meeting of 2024. That's all I have on the agenda, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. We're going to move on to our committee reports. I understand Mayor Dallas is not here. Do we have anyone that would be filling in for the Municipal Advisory Committee?
I'm sorry.
Oh, so the mayor has joined online. Mayor Dallas, you're recognized for the Municipal Advisory Committee report.
He hasn't joined yet.
Okay, then we're gonna go ahead and move forward, and we're gonna go to the Community Advisory Committee. Mr. Campbell.
Okay,
good
thank
morning.
you, and good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. The Community Advisory Committee met on October 25th and recommended approval of FDOT's functional classification of public roadways. We also appointed 3 CAC members to the Officer Selection Subcommittee, which will put together and forward nominations for our chair and vice chair for our next meeting in December. CAC members got an update on the region's Vision Zero action plan. Members expressed their support for this safety initiative and concerns that it needs to, of course, address all vulnerabilities of users. Members also previewed the FDOT and FTE initiative work programs and urged FDOT to continue to push forward with more safety measures and more facilities for pedestrians and cyclists. The next CAC meeting will be December 6th. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Are there any questions or comments from Mr. Campbell? Seeing, and we always appreciate your report. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the Technical Advisory Committee. Mr. Bill Warren, you are recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Technical Advisory Committee.
Can we have you hit your button?
There we go.
Perfect.
Sorry.
And Mr. Campbell, good morning. Thank you.
The Technical Advisory Committee met in person with a quorum present last month on October 27th. The committee reviewed and approved meeting minutes from the August 25th TAC meeting. The committee also unanimously voted to recommend this board approve the 2020 functional classification of public roads in the 3-county area as presented by FDOT. The TAC also established a subcommittee to review the TAC bylaws and to select candidates to serve as the TAC chairman and vice chairman for 2024. This subcommittee will meet next week and report back to the TAC at our next meeting. The committee also heard presentations on the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan update, the FDOT tentative work program for the next 5 years, also for Florida's Turnpike Enterprise tentative work program, and had an explanation from MetroPlan on the urban area smoothing process after the 2020 census. And the next TAC meeting will be December 1st, 2023. And Madam Chair, that is my report.
Appreciate the update, Mr. Warren. Do we have any questions or comments for him? Seeing none, thank you again for your updates. We want to move on to the Transportation System Management and Operations Advisory Committee, known as TSMO. Mr. Smith, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board. The Transportation Systems Management Operations Advisory Committee met on October 27th, and there were 3 items for approval that we did. The minutes for the August 25th meeting for TSMO were approved, and we also approved the 2020 functional classification of public roadways as proposed for District 5. And we also approved our officer selection subcommittee for selection of candidates to serve as the TSMO chairman and vice chairman for the 2024 calendar year. We had 2 presentations and 1 discussion item. The first presentation was by Mr. Gary Yeager of Osceola County on the county's artificial intelligence project focused on monitoring intersections as a means of improving safety. Our second was by Mr. Adam Hops of the National Operations Center of Excellence on the 2023 survey on the trends in TSMO nationwide. And then lastly, Mr. Eric Hill of MetroPlan Orlando staff led a discussion on the Federal Highway Administration's AI-enabled ITS Readiness Assessment Project with the Florida International University. This project can be used as a self-assessment of a transportation agency's readiness to deploy or manage AI in transportation. The TSMO committee agreed to have a workshop to evaluate our region's readiness to deploy AI using this assessment tool. Our next meeting will be held on December 1st, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. And that concludes my reports, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. That AI topic is really becoming quite popular. Is there any questions or comments from Mr. Smith? Seeing and we appreciate the updated report. I just want to check in to see if Mayor Dallas has joined us yet.
No, ma'am, he has
We-
not.
We have not. And Alex, you have an update?
Record. So the MAC did meet on November 2nd last week, like they do typically, the week in advance of the board meeting. They did approve their September meeting minutes, and their agenda was identical to our other advisory committees. So they did take action and approved the functional classification, which is on your agenda today. And they also heard informational presentations on the work program, as well as on our Vision Zero efforts. They meet next on December 2nd, a week in advance of your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing and thank you for stepping in and providing that up.
Madam Chair, just to let you know, Mayor Dallas has just joined.
Mayor Dallas, I don't know if you had any update for the Municipal Advisory Committee. Alex just provided the report.
Nope, that's it. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. Appreciate you. All right, we're going to move on to public comment on action items. If there's anybody in person in the location listed as as a public comment item on an action item, please allow that known now. Virtually, also via Zoom, use your raise hand feature during public comment to indicate you want to speak. Ms. Smith, do we have any public comment on action items this morning?
I have not received any requests and I do not see any hands online.
All right, thank you very much. We are going to move on now to the consent agenda. You have this in your book and I need a motion.
Motion for approval, Janer.
We have a
Juan
motion.
Gomez.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Janer, a second by Commissioner Gomez Cordero. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? It passed, consent agenda item passes unanimously. We're gonna move on to other action items, which is the approval of the functional classification for FDOT. Do we have a motion for approval? We have a motion by Commissioner
Madam Chair, we
Zippauer.
have a presentation on this.
Oh, excuse me. I apologize, Mr. Wood. I think I was on a road all the way out of this, but we want to recognize Mr. Jeb Wood and Kimley Horn.
Don't want to disrupt progress.
We were so eager and excited for the functional
Good morning, ma'am.
classification. You're recognized. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Jim Wood with Kimley Horn. We're consultant support to DOT District 5 for functional classification and urban boundary updates. The department first presented on these processes a little over a year ago in August and September of 22. And in that presentation, we reminded that these processes, urban boundary and functional classifications, are updated at the same time following each census. So today we're in that culminating step for functional classification. Urban boundaries are still in progress and we'll be coming back for more on that in the next couple of months. Just a reminder, this is a federal method, a system to assign roadways into classifications. Some of the implications are related to funding. So for example, minor collectors in an urban area and above, arterial, expressway, interstate, all of those are eligible for FEMA funding in the event of a storm situation. Anything below that is not. So that is a consideration when evaluating classifications, but the real emphasis is to focus on the use. And fund class does not really define the approach to roadway design or drive it, and it does not limit or constrain changes. So a principal arterial, for example, that may be 6 lanes, it's thought of for a lane repurposing and desire to reduce it down. That is something that is not limited by this and still could be done. The intent is to always try to keep the classification related to how the roadway is actually servicing. So we've had extensive outreach on this with the various committees. In the spring, we had multiple check-ins with the technical committee as we went through the review process, and then initial agency meetings with the 3 counties and city of Orlando because of the extent of their classifications that we wanted to discuss. We used a dashboard and application to kind of help compare current and proposed, and then provide comments as a portal from the agencies to DOT. And then in terms of comments, we got more comments from more agencies than what you see here, but these are the ones that we had specific meetings with, follow up to coordinate, and we appreciate all the partnership on that to bring this to a conclusion. So in your map tab or tab 2 is this 12-page map set. These are broken up into different sheets to make them a little more readable, but at the end, they will be 3 individual county maps when they're approved. And then, of course, we're seeking the approval, as you're aware,
We do again want to thank MetroPlan Orlando team and then the other agencies for their work on this, and with the hoped for approval today, if that takes place, these will kind of hold in an interim state while we work through the urban boundary process. And then both of those will be signed probably sometime in the spring by the MetroPlan Orlando Board Chair, as well as the DOT Secretary, and then submitted to Federal Highway. So that is my comments, Madam Chair.
I think everybody's positive already because Commissioner Zimbauer wanted to move forward, but do we have any questions or comments? We do. I see a question from Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Thank you so much. I was actually going to ask about I saw the dates for the coordination with the various jurisdictions, and I was wondering who represented Orange County in that.
Well, Brian Saunders was one of the.
So it was staff.
Yeah, several. Yeah, there, and all of these, it's the staff. In fact, mostly it's those who are on the technical advisory committee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, Commissioner Zimbauer.
I should put on the record, I know this is something that has excited some of my constituents in Seminole. This is not going to affect Seminole County's rural boundary. There's been a lot of concern in a certain area where some of these road classifications have changed in our rural area, which is a voter approved referendum dating back to 2005. So I just want to get on the record, this will not be impacting the control of our rural area in Seminole County. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that update. I understand we have a question online. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I do want to ask our board members that are online if you had a question or a comment. Okay, hearing none. Seeing no other, I'm going to go ahead and move forward and ask for a motion for approval. So we have a motion by Commissioner Zimbauer and a second by Commissioner Gomez Cordero. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, fantastic. The passes unanimously. I also at this time, Ms. Smith wanted to recognize Commissioner Ortiz is present to add to our quorum. Fantastic. Good morning, Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Commissioner. I apologize that I'm president. It's just out of meeting this
Okay,
morning at the airport.
understood. Thank you for joining us. We're going to move on to our informational items for acknowledgement. This is an action item, so if I could have a motion for approval.
Motion approved.
We have a motion. And we have a second by motion by Commissioner Zimbauer, second by Commissioner Gomez Cordero. I did want to allow a little bit of acknowledgement to the section F, which is a 2023 apportionment plan submitted to the state of Florida. So this is something that Gary alluded to earlier, and this is very good for us here. With that, all in favor online also say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to move on to other business and presentations. At this time, we're going to recognize Mike Wilson and Adriana Rodriguez to discuss the Vision Zero Central Florida update and looking ahead. Mike, you are recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Again, good morning, everyone. So updating you on the progress of our Vision Zero action plan, a little bit on our work to date. We've been doing things at the regional level that will help all the local governments develop their plans. For example, setting up graphic standards. Saves a lot of work for your local agencies in putting together plans, although they're certainly customizable if you want to put your own particular flair to your document. We're also developing templates for a variety of documents also just to make things easier for the local governments. A really key component of the plan, which again also filters down to the counties and municipalities, is our high injury network. So these are the roads where we see the highest concentration of serious injuries and fatalities. And in addition to those corridors of 30 intersections that are especially problematic as well. The way we develop this network is, well, we look at all the crashes. We give extra weighting to fatal and incapacitating injury crashes. And we weight them equally because often the difference between a fatality and a serious injury is more a matter of what happens at the hospital, or just, a microsecond's different outcome, could result in a fatality. We also give extra weighting for vulnerable road, yeah, I'll get it together. 30 years, it does it. Vulnerable road users, because even if we have crashes of those participants in a corridor that aren't serious, we know the potential for them to be serious crashes is much greater. Some key findings in looking through our data so far: about half of our serious and fatal crashes are happening on only 4% of our roads. So that's a good news in a way, because that means we can really focus on a relatively small number of our roads to address a big part of our problem. And to give you some picture of why these particular roads are showing up, here's some additional data. First off, I'll mention this acronym of KSI. That means killed or serious injury. So we'll be using that to encapsulate those most serious crashes. If you look at this chart, the lines in blue are the percentage of centerline miles for that posted speed. And then the orange and red bars looking at the number of serious injury crashes. And so you see that 40 and 45 mile an hour roads are disproportionately representative in our serious and fatal crashes. But we also do look at behavior and the demographics. So in this chart, we can see that the impact of age on impairment and speed as it relates to crashes. You see that those in their 20s and 30s are overrepresented. So the blue and green dots are the percent of driver's licenses in the population. And then the orange and red bars are the percentage of speeding or impairment-related crashes. But we look at more than just the crash data. There's the Florida Injury Surveillance System, which gives us some additional information, particularly on bicyclists and pedestrians and other micromobility users, crashes that don't involve motor vehicles, for example. We also have in our Sunrail incidents, any incident that does not involve a motor vehicle does not get a crash report. So we get data from Sunrail in respect to pedestrians and cyclists as well. So an interesting little factoid out of the injury surveillance data: 60% of bicyclists' hospital admissions, so serious enough to warrant admission to the hospital, and then 20% of our deaths do not involve a motor vehicle. So there are other environmental factors and behavioral factors that can contribute to these injuries. Our key takeaways when we look at the high injury network is that posted speeds and the number of lanes and traffic volumes, which all tend to correlate, are responsible for the lion's share of our risk and severity. And the suburban commercial arterials, multi-lane, lots of turning movements, and that's where we see the highest concentrations as well. Roads through disadvantaged communities are overrepresented in our data, and we're looking at that through a number of different metrics, so we don't have final numbers on that yet. And then, not surprisingly, issues such as speeding, unlawful speed, distraction, aggression, and impairment are very significant components of our safety problem. And I will hand over to Adriana. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun. No, I have one more section here. Our hub site for the Vision Zero Central Florida is up and operational. This is our one-stop shop website for all of the data and all the documents that we're developing through this program. We share all the data that your local governments can download from there. The public can go and look at all of this data, and we have an access restricted part of the document area for things that are in progress, and then as they become finalized, they go out onto the public section. And then we have a calendar of events and a public engagement component to the site as well. This is a snapshot of the data dashboard. What this allows you to do is look at all of our crashes, and you can zoom into your particular jurisdiction, whatever types of crashes you want to look at, and it instantly will update the map as well as the metrics that are associated with those selections. Now I will hand it over to Adriana to talk about where we go from here.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm going to provide an overview of key tasks related to the project schedule. We are currently developing non-engineering countermeasures as well as engineering countermeasures for the regional plan. This will also feed into the local plans. We are also working in the policy review. This is taking a look at existing policies, best practices, and with the intent to be able to understand what is in place right now and what can be recommended to incorporate safety in existing policies. For 2024 winter spring timeframe, we're going to be moving into identifying and prioritizing projects and strategies. And then spring 2024, the action plan will be completed and presented to the board for approval and adoption. Local plans are underway for the 3 counties and all the municipalities within the MetroPlan Orlando area. We have deployed our consultant teams to lead the development of these local plans alongside with local agency staff. The plans are currently in various stages of early tasks, including the development of public engagement plans, a steering committee and working group activities. These steering committees and working groups are composed of local government staff, but also law enforcement, other community groups, representation from school districts, and other, again, other community groups that are active in transportation. There are also some community outreach events that have taken place already, specifically at specifically pop-up type of events to get to the community where they are and provide information about the plan. These initial activities will bring awareness of the purpose of the plan and how the community can stay involved throughout the process. In terms of technical activities, the different plans are currently refining the high injury networks and the analysis of crash trends with guidance and the data that has been provided through the regional plan efforts. And these various plans are envisioned to be completed in May-June 2024 timeframe, consistent with the completion of the regional plan. For next steps, the next task force meeting for the regional plan is scheduled for November 28th. This is task force meeting number 3. I already provided information about other plans. They have all kicked off and are in progress. In terms of engagement, the hub site is functional, as Mike indicated. We also have included a survey tool as part of that hub site that is intended to gather feedback from the community related to not only the high injury network, but maybe other locations where the community experience safety issues. So there are a number of questions and a map that people can go and place a specific location, provide feedback. This will inform not only the regional plan, but also the local plans. For tasks in progress, we are currently working on the detailed crash analysis and the policy benchmarking guidance. That concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. We appreciate the presentation. I wanted to ask 2 questions. Mike, I don't know if it's possible. I know that you had a very quick map that listed all the high dangerous areas or incident areas. Is there a way to get a breakdown of that, like streets and major roads?
We do have that. It was, too much to put in the
Clearly,
presentation, but yes,
yes.
there's a list of all the roads and intersections.
And then my follow-up question is, I can only speak on Orange County with the mayor here, but we have our Vision Zero implementation. I know the city of Orlando also has one. So how are you all coordinating with all of these agencies who are receiving funding and making proactive efforts on what they're finding as issues?
Well, so as Adriano noted, we have county steering committees. Well, each of those steering committees, all of the the city governments have seats on those steering committees. And then.
So it's a fluid conversation.
Right. So there's constant communication, as well as the way we have our consultants set up is that in many cases, the consultant who's handling the county is also handling most or many of the cities that are within that county. So there's integrated planning happening in that way.
Fantastic. Thank you for that update. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Can anybody tell me? Thank you. Anybody tell me on this ongoing tasks, the crash analysis, tell me how that work product's taking place. How are we analyzing the crash data?
We have more factors than we can wrap our heads around, but we're trying to narrow them down because we have so many things that we can look at, not only from what types of crashes and what are the environmental factors, but what do the adjacent land uses look like? What do the demographics look like? And so we're tying all of those things together to find the nuggets of really actionable information that can help us to target locations and target the countermeasures that will reduce our crashes.
And I'm assuming part and parcel that you're looking at the Florida short form accident report that is available. Is that something we're considering?
All of our short form and long form. And so we have the basic crash types as well as detailed crash types for pedestrian and bicycle crashes.
Right. And my concern with that, and I suspect that we're putting a lot of weight on the short or long form traffic report. My concern is many times in excess of 50% of those are inaccurate. So if we're relying upon that, I mean, that's based on witness statements at the scene or driver or pedestrians' interpretation if they're able to interpret. So I would be very cautious in putting too much weight in the actual accident reports themselves and try to vet that out.
Right.
That's my concern.
Right.
That we really are digesting true data.
True. And we understand that someone who's reviewed literally thousands of pedestrian and bicycle crashes, I totally get that. What we look at when it comes to crashes is we don't look at fault, we look at crash type. And that generally is fairly accurate, not always, but it's closer. And more importantly, we're looking at, again, all these other factors as well. So the crash type and the fault, if you will, are of lesser concern. They're not the ultimate concern.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Gomez Cordero and then Commissioner Wilson after.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Wilson and Ms. Rodriguez for the presentation. I just wanted to ask, in the local action plan, I saw that most of the areas in Orange County is on the west side, and I didn't see anything on the east side. Is there any, why is not, the east side included?
Well, the local action plans are all based on municipalities. So Orange County doesn't really have any municipalities on the east side of the county. That's but they are all represented by the county itself. So areas such as.
Okay, yeah, but Leona is city, but it's not, like we don't have a, okay, so can we have, or can I receive the update of this presentation today? Because I have the one in my folder it was like the last month. Please,
Sure.
Thank you.
Great. I think I would too. So maybe we could have your much more detailed presentation that's abbreviated in the book. Is that fantastic? Commissioner Wilson?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to find out a little bit more about what exactly, or an explanation a little bit about what a non-engineering countermeasure is or what that would look like for a user, a urban user. And then the second one also, I really wanted to follow up on Commissioner Cordero's question about, we have very high urbanized, unincorporated areas and the concern about their representation as we move forward, and how that is addressed.
So non-engineering it's essentially it's behavioral. I mean, what can we do to influence behavior? You know, even electronic means that aren't normally thought of as engineering, maybe not designing the road, but might be TISMO approaches. Kind of gets into a gray area of whether that's behavior or engineering. But yeah, we'll be looking at what are the behaviors that we want to focus on, and then what are the mechanisms by which we influence those. And then your second question was about representation for.
Yeah, in those highly urbanized, unincorporated areas.
I think yes, we bring back to the counties to talk about that. We just had Orange County's second meeting yesterday, but we'll bring that up actually. Roberta here. So,
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we both, I think Commissioner Cordero and I both in our respective districts have Hunters Creek, Williamsburg, Horizon West, highly populated, densified areas that I think don't have that municipal overlay, and we're just concerned about representation.
Sure.
Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for your presentation. Very insightful. You talk about bicycle accidents, and my concern with the bicycle accidents because a lot of kids are the ones that are involved in these accidents. You mentioned that there was a smaller percentage where there was vehicles involved. Do we have the other reasons why these bicycle accidents are happening? And there's some sort of reference in terms of how we're building roads or cross paths or whatnot.
So an interesting thing in looking through the data, the people who are most overrepresented in bicycle crashes are men in their 40s to 40s and 50s.
Oh my
God. Children are underrepresented as a population in bicycle crashes. And these aren't men who are out for recreational cycling. They are really, these crashes are happening along busy arterials, people who are cycling for transportation and out of necessity, not for recreation. So there's that. And then as far as the crashes that don't involve a motor vehicle, it can be anything from the mechanics of the bicycle, surface hazards, obstacles, particularly along sidewalks where a lot of cyclists ride. There's things that they run into. So there's a variety of, and sometimes crashes between cyclists.
Is it one of the elements that we may not have enough bike path?
That's hard to say. We don't really have location information on on these non-motor vehicle crashes. Typically, though, a path will be designed to have greater clear zones, and so you have fewer obstacles.
But this may be a consideration for future studies.
It is, yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Seeing no other further comment or questions, we'll conclude with you. Thank you very much. We want to move up to the 2024 legislative positions update. We're going to have Miss Virginia Whittington, and I believe we have Ryan also online as a backup to you. You're Batman, he's Robin today.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. And I wanted to congratulate Mayor Dyer and those who were successful in their reelection or election last night. But I guess there was a party maybe. So, Madam Chair, just to take you all real quickly through your draft copy of your 2024 legislative priorities. They are at your place. And we are joined this morning by Ryan Matthews, Angela Dreswicki, and Katie Flurry of the Gray Robinson team. They are up in Tallahassee because there is a special session going on. And so the legislative session that is happening, they need to be virtual. Otherwise, they would have been here to speak to you in person today. I did meet with the team a couple of weeks ago to discuss these priorities that you have in front of you. We are going to more of position statements as we do not have anything that the team is out front carrying the water on. And these are items that you have seen. We are retreading the tires on these and presenting them in the two categories. The one category is positions that MetroPlan Orlando takes of legislative initiatives that we will support and those that we will continue to monitor on your behalf and bring back to you if there's any immediate action that needs to be taken. We have made a couple of minor adjustments and recommendation for you today, and hopefully by consensus, we're able to pass this along to the team in Tallahassee for them to work on. The first has to do with, the first minor update is to your position that has to do with the advancement of innovative mobility solutions. We propose that MetroPlan Orlando also support the use of artificial intelligence to further enhance safety for the traveling public. You heard the TSMO report earlier this morning and looking at our region to see how ready we are for the integration of artificial intelligence. And we have a very successful and intriguing project right here in our region in Osceola County, where AI is being used to monitor safety at intersections. So we know that AI is a hot topic and that it comes with two sides of just like everyone else in any other situation. You know, some are for it and some are against it. But we are wanting to position ourselves as a region to make the best possible use of AI when it comes to safety for the traveling public. The other minor adjustment is with your support for legislation that increases transportation investments through dedicated and sustainable funding options. Previously, we had included a projected level of TRIP funding of $20 million. That was an initiative that came out of the MPOAC. And so we have just removed that dollar amount, and we're looking for any increase in funding that could come to us through the TRIP. And again, these items were presented to you and have pretty much rolled over each year with the position for transportation. And with your consent, we will have the team in Tallahassee to keep their eyes on these items. And also with your consent, Madam Chair and members, we would want to use the same process that we have used in the past couple of years, where if anything happens in between your meetings that needs immediate attention, that we're able to call the executive committee together to address it prior to, so that nothing falls between the cracks. So we'd like to have your consent to be able to do that. I will pause for any questions that you may have with regard to these items that are before you. And then after which we'll turn it over to Ryan, who will give you some additional information.
Great. Thank you, Virginia. I want to go ahead and open it up the floor to Commissioner Grebe.
Yes. What was the reasoning for removing the dollar amount?
This is something that, again, that has been brought forward a number of years, and Gary, in his conversations, suggested that the 250 million be removed. So, Gary, if there's some more that you want to add.
Yeah, for years, the MPOAC, and this was before Commissioner Uribe, your involvement in it, the MPOAC developed a list of legislative priorities. And then they were instructed that they could not do that. Federal Highway Administration instructed them not to do that. So those went away. And the number that they came up with was just kind of an arbitrary number. They looked back a number of years and wanted to have that in there. And it was just my suggestion that we remove that and not go for a certain amount, but just pursue additional funding that's available.
Is it because you feel we would get more, or do you feel we'd not even get the 250?
I just didn't want to set the tone of, that this is what we're looking for. We're looking for additional funds for transportation. If it's 100 million, if it's 200 million.
I just find it helpful sometimes when you're seeking something from that if I know exactly what you're looking for, and if it's 250,000, but we can't quite do that, but we can do something else, it kind of sets this is what the bar is. Kind of like in budgets.
Yeah.
You don't always get exactly what you're looking for in your budget, but I don't know. I guess our lobbyists can do that piece of it, but I tend to like to see figures.
Commissioner, that's the purpose of us having this
Yeah.
conversation. If you're more comfortable having a number there, we can certainly return it. If that's the direction of the board, absolutely, we'll do
Yeah,
that.
the only reason I wouldn't put it in there is if you thought we'd get more than that. Otherwise, I think it's better to put a figure in because then there's a target. And when we're speaking with the different legislatures and such, that's.
Well, we can certainly add it back in just with the understanding of where it comes from. It's a number that was developed by the statewide organization. Not really anchored to anything other than a years ago previous level of funding. So.
Commissioner Zimbabwe.
Thank you. And to Commissioner Greaves' point, I understand exactly that argument that she's making. But I think there's also a counter argument that should be considered before we move forward and giving direction, is that I've come to realize in the legislatures when they're looking at a number that oftentimes they just blow by it and say, hey, you need $250 million, but we're not giving you $250 million. If you're making an ask, then I think that gives the opportunity of some conversation to take place from our lobbying group to those legislatures of what we're really looking for. And if there's, at the end of the day, I would hate to lose 100 million because we're asking for 250 million.
Right.
And I understand that the bartering going on, the back and forth and so forth. But as fast and furious as this legislature has proven to act, my concern would be is they see a number that is blow through it and blow by it, which then causes our lobbyists, to have to babysit every moment and every waking moment to ensure they understand what we're really looking for. So I think I understand your point completely. I don't know what the right answer is. I think there's two schools of thought there, and maybe our lobbyists would better tell us.
I think we want to tap on the Ryan. I know I want to further mention what Gary was alluding to. This has been a hot topic at the state level, and our ability to no longer lobby as an organization, and lots of discussion. We're right now planning actually a meeting with our executive board and Secretary Perdue in January. So this is a moving target. We're also very cautious of what MPOs mean in the legislature too. So if Ryan, if you would like to allude a little bit more to that to kind of give some background, because last year we skidded by. We know there's going to be some updated legislation because they inadvertently did something that didn't actually assist, but at the same time we're working with DOT, so it's an effort that goes together, but ultimately for the same cause. So Ryan.
Madam Chair, just before Ryan starts, if I can just use as an example the times that you and I have gone and knocked on doors with regard to increased funding for transportation disadvantaged. We put a number out there and then it gets used as a bartering chip, and then it goes back, one side to the other side. So at least there's something for them, a place to start. It may not be what we want in the end, but you kind of get close during those times, and maybe Ryan can.
Yeah, and Virginia's right, when we went for disability transportation, but that was it was very purposeful because it was for ridership. MPOs are on a different level right now in front of the legislature. Sure. And I'm going to refer to Ryan to kind of help us guide and tread lightly, like Commissioner Zimbauer was saying at the same time.
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Ryan Matthews from Gray Robinson, joined by Angela Dreswecki and Katie Fleury, your lobbying team in Tallahassee. I'll start with sort of directly answering the question before I talk about anything else. The chair is right. I think there's a healthy amount of skepticism about the role of MPOs in the state, particularly in the Florida House of Representatives. You'll recall last year, towards the latter part of session, we had some language that was filed in the transportation bill that really showed a lack of understanding and comprehension of the function of MPOs throughout the state. We also have quite a bit of attention in the Pinellas County, Tampa area about consolidation of MPOs throughout this state. So, you know, I think the chair is absolutely right. And I would agree that the reason for us moving towards a monitoring position is largely because we want to focus on education this session, because it's clear that it is much needed in Tallahassee about, again, the regulatory role of and the community role of MPOs throughout the state, but also your legal maneuvering or your charge, both from a federal and state perspective, because A, I don't think a lot of folks are very clear on that in Tallahassee, and B, there are some folks, quite frankly, who want to make significant changes, and those changes will not always be positive for MPOs throughout the state. Now, as we talk about whether or not to identify a specific number for any funding resource, I'll say a couple things. So last year, we had a $117 billion budget, the largest in the state's history. Governor ultimately ended up vetoing about $3 billion. I think we have seen from revenue impacts and forecasts that for at least the next 6 months, the state of Florida is in a very good position. Now, I think the unknown is on both an international and domestic level. What happens after that 6 months? We're still teetering on what may be a future recession. So the state's economist has told the legislature, guys, you might want to start looking at long-term infrastructure investments while simultaneously understanding that we may have some sort of cliff before us in the next year or two. And so that is causing the legislature this session to look at recurring funding sources throughout the state budget. Whether that means there'll be large scale cuts, I don't know. I don't think you are personally, my counsel would be, I don't think you're putting yourself in a negative position by identifying a number that you would like to see any pot of money funded at, because your team is going to consistently be talking to legislators about historic funding for that specific program, what it is used for and why it benefits the state of Florida. So quite frankly, we stand by ready to move forward with the will of the board in terms of whether or not a specific number is placed on any pot of funding. But again, I would say not only with the form and function of MPOs, but on specific funding pots, it's clear that our consistent education is absolutely necessary, so folks get a better understanding of the form and function of MPOs in Tallahassee.
Thank you, Ryan. And I don't know how much you've heard of our meeting, but Gary and I were discussing the strategic plan at the MPOAC, and actually education and advocacy were ranked 1 and 2 as far as us working as a mission. So falls in line.
Absolutely. And Chair, one of the things that we have sort of shifted to, through our work with Gary and Virginia, after understanding better the inability for the MPOAC to lobby directly, is Angela, Katie, and I have been, much more communicative with other MPO lobbyists throughout the state of Florida, particularly in South Florida, because we want to ensure that, again, that education and messaging on behalf of MPOs is continued through without MPOAC specifically being able to participate.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. It's good to see you, and thank you for your report. I know that you also work with the Florida League of Cities, and I think in an effort for us to get to those legislators that most of the time they don't have local elected experience, we should combine forces with the counties, also with the League of Counties and with the Florida League of Cities. We have very similar agendas when it comes to transportation. Have we seen, have we done any of this in the past?
So to your point, Commissioner, and good to see you as well. I do represent both the Florida League of Cities and the Association of Counties. We have not had extensive conversations about synergies, although there certainly are many, right, in the past. And I think that it would benefit both parties, quite frankly, or all parties, to be consistent in their messaging, particularly on issues like pedestrian safety. You all are much more aware than those in Tallahassee about the current state of pedestrian safety in Florida as it relates to the rest of the nation. And I think having other entities be consistent in messaging only benefits the whole when it comes to policy making.
I think our agendas are pretty similar, so we can arrange to have a meeting and discuss those. So I think it would be a lot more effective. So I appreciate you and everything you're doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to facilitate that as well.
Yeah, and Brian, just as an added, the MPOAC is getting involved with the Florida Association of Counties also, again, on that informational and advocacy level. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? So I guess I want to put out there a direction. We do want to give a direction. We hear some concerns with not having a number. We also hear concerns of how the legislature may respond, and us, Gary and I, also knowing at the MPOAC, which is essentially all 27 MPOs, concerns we have as a whole. Can I kind of get some feedback on, do we want to just be on that defensive informational advocacy level of what Brian is suggesting? But he's also saying if you want to put a number can go, but it doesn't mean anything. And I also know there's a glitch bill being worked on as far as the MPOAC. So I would love some feedback. Any other comments, thoughts? Commissioner Jane or Tim, I'm going to ask you as a seasoned chairman, but I'm going to start with Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would suggest that we also develop a campaign to empower the people that we serve in reference to transportation. We did that a couple of years ago, the Florida League of Cities, to empower the whole state for that matter. And it was pretty effective when it came down to delivering the message to those legislators in Tallahassee. I think we should make our community aware of what's going on here and the need. Of course, we all know about the need of transportation and the effect of it in terms of because of the population we're getting, the people that are moving to a Central Florida region. So I suggest we also develop a plan to continue. I think years ago we did something similar for something else with MetroPlan Orlando. I think we can go back to do something like this to empower our communities with the needs that we have for transportation, and in that matter, have them also call the legislators in Tallahassee to make sure that we push the agenda that we have at hand. So.
Before I go to Commissioner Janer, we don't want to discredit our strong relationship we have with FDOT. Lorraine Bobo, Jack, Secretary Tyler, all the efforts we do together, the Vision Zero, those are all very stable. And we know Secretary Perdue, who knows us personally, who hopefully is also listening to that. Commissioner Janer, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is we haven't gone anywhere with the $250 million number. So why don't we give it a go without the number, and perhaps that'll open the board to getting something rather than nothing. I would say let's try for 1 year with the recommendation of Mr. Huntman by removing the number, especially since it's arbitrary. It's not really founded on any specific thing, and see how it goes.
Okay, any additional feedback? I know we heard from Commissioner Grieve and Zimbauer. Anyone else? Any thoughts?
Madam Chair, I'd move forward for consensus.
Okay, let's just give clear, I think we have a consensus to not add a number at this time. I think we do have a consensus of Commissioner Ortiz offering some educational opportunity for our communities. And Ryan, I'm going to stick in line with the consensus of we need to be advocating, educating. And as you said, you have a relationship with many MPOs, because we've got to be cautious with the legislature, and following up with Commissioner Zimbauer said. We want to make sure that we don't lose any of our abilities, and that we continue to be a strong avenue for advocacy for safety and transportation. So does that give you some direction of where we want to head the ship?
It does. It gives us exactly what we need. And I want to also say thank you to this board for being the regional leaders that we are. Ryan can share with you that Gary and I received a call from Rep. McFarland's office wanting to for us to share some information about MPOs, because there is such a misunderstanding of what we do, and we are held out as a leader in this vein throughout the state. And so when a representative looks to us to want to get our input before they put something before the legislature, I think that speaks volumes of the leaders that we are here in Central Florida.
Fantastic.
And I think Ryan wanted to.
Yeah, I wanted to go ahead and Ryan, you're recognized.
I appreciate that. I will echo Virginia's comments. Chair Fiona McFarland of the House Transportation and Intermodals Committee. We had a very, very substantive conversation with her over an hour a number of months ago. We're likely going to have a follow-up conversation here in the next couple of weeks because it is true, MetroPlan is really held out to be a leader when it comes to MPOs throughout the state, and that is because of the good work that you all continue to do. Very briefly, I kind of want to give you just an overall picture of where we are. We are in special session right now. As Virginia mentioned earlier, there were 3 or 4 things that the legislature has discussed this week. That special session will end tomorrow. It was disaster relief from Hurricane Idalia. It was the Family Empowerment Scholarship Program, which was a part of a large education bill that passed last year, House Bill 1. Security grants for Jewish day schools. And other synagogues, et cetera, throughout the state of Florida. There was about $35 million that's going to be passed for extra security grants there. The state enlarged the scrutinized companies list, mainly looking at Iran due to some of the international conflict that's occurred most recently. Again, that special session will end tomorrow. We will then have 3 committee weeks before the start of our January 9th legislative session. That 30-day session will run through March 8th. So we're hopeful that this session will end on time as the last 2 sessions have. 3 things to really pay attention to because it is still early. There are only about 300 bills that have been filed to date. We're likely going to see about 1,500 more before the new year. So number 1, the budget. We had that $117 billion budget last year. What happens with the budget this year with state economists, again, saying that there could be some fiscal cliff coming or a potential recession? Will we see a significant reduction in a state budget, which obviously could potentially impact transportation silos? Number 2, House Bill 287 was filed extremely recently, and we will be sending that to Gary and Virginia for their review. There is one small section dealing directly with MPOs. It says in that section that after July 1, 2024, there is a prohibition on new MPOs being created unless in an urbanized area. An urbanized area is defined by the latest Census Bureau. So that is the only piece of legislation that stands out there today that discuss specifically MPOs. I would imagine, again, per our previous discussions, that will grow. So our education efforts will be paramount. The second bill I want to talk about, and the last bill, was House Bill 157. This is an issue that we've actually been working on for a number of years, and Virginia in particular has led this charge dealing with governing body meetings as it relates to teleconferencing, quorums, et cetera. House Bill 157 was just filed by Representative Mike Caruso, which would allow governing bodies of municipalities to convene meetings and conduct official business via teleconference or other technological means, so long as you meet all of the public notice requirements. And so this is a big deal, really stemmed from the coronavirus. We've been working on it for a while. Right now, there are a couple of different hurdles. There's no Senate sponsor, so there's no Senate bill. And right now, the definition is governing body of a municipality. We would need to advocate to the sponsor that he needs to expand that definition to include other governmental entities and not just the governing body of a municipality. So with that, like I said, January 9th is the start of session. We will keep Virginia and Gary up to date because things do move really, really quickly. A little bit of political context. Tonight's the 3rd Republican presidential debate in Miami. Last year, we saw the governor, the speaker, and the Senate president work extremely closely to pass a robust agenda. This year, it's been a little bit of quiet from the governor's office in terms of what their legislative priorities are. So in Tallahassee, the buzz, if you will, or the conversations are, when will those governor priorities be formed? Will it be before January, or will session sort of look like a reactionary type legislative session? That all remains to be seen, and obviously there are larger national political implications there. But I think we'll see another relatively exciting legislative session in Tallahassee. Again, hopefully legislators will be ready to go home and hit the campaign trail come March.
Ryan, thank you very much for the updates. Seeing no other questions or comments, we're going to complete this task and move forward to our last presentation, which will be the FDOT draft work program is Catherine Alexander and Sayasi Fine. Mr. Sayasi Fine, you guys are recognized.
Good morning, Chairwoman and Commissioners. Glad to be here to share information on our tentative work program for this cycle. Little trigger happy there. All right, so this is an annual process that we go through where we build the tentative work program, and we build it in partnership with federal agencies as well as our local partners, MPOs and TPOs, as well as the regional stakeholders. It represents project needs in the upcoming 5 years, which is represented by fiscal years 25 to fiscal year 29, which is July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2029. And it represents various activities, which could be planning, studies, concepts, design, right-of-way construction, maintenance, operations. All of those needs are compiled, and we build a tentative and we balance that work program. Each district builds their own tentative work program. They are then all compiled to become the statewide tentative work program, and it gets submitted to Tallahassee legislature and the governor for ultimate approval and adoption July 1st of next year. So some important dates for this cycle are listed on this slide. The closing of our public comment was last Friday, November 3rd. That is so that they can be included in the work program public hearing documentation. However, the comments are still open, and if they want to be submitted, they certainly can through our work program website. We submit the tentative work program to the Executive Office of the Governor December 26th at the end of this year. The Florida Transportation Commission will hold also a public hearing on the tentative work program that is scheduled for January 8th. And the Florida State Legislation 2024 session occurs January 9th through March 15th. And again, for that ultimate adoption occurring July 1st of 2024. Similar to what Mr. Atkinson mentioned earlier, cost increases, the increase of material costs and resources for our construction projects continues to be on the rise. This gives you a representation of what we have seen over the last couple of years. This is mainly due to supply chain constraints as well as material and labor shortages, and clearly inflation, as we probably have all been on the receiving end of that across various levels. We had contract price adjustments of over $263 million in 2023. And these were adjustments to construction projects so that we can maintain those projects going for our contractors due to delays in the supply chains and some of that variability in cost for the materials. We also update our cost indices, our cost per mile for the various roadway typicals of the department. And that's what you see in the bottom table here. And this represents a 4-lane divided rural roadway. And the material cost per mile has increased, as you can see, over the last 3 years. For a new construction type work project, we're seeing a 17% increase from 22 to 23. Resurfacing projects, resurfacing material for that type of a project, cost per mile has gone up 26.5% in the last year. But you can see it's progressively gotten higher since 2021. So aside from these project cost implications, when we're building and balancing our tentative work program, we have to consider the program area, the targets, the requirements that we have to meet by Florida statute, the needs for the region, and we have to balance that against the available funding, which in our case would be revenues that then translate to allocations for the department. And as we have heard from some of the previous speaker, revenue projections are really conservative. They are better than anticipated, but unfortunately with the increases that we have seen, we can't say that they offset the inflation over the last couple of years. We have seen very slow or very minimal growth in terms of the transportation and fuel revenue. Rental car surcharges was pretty stagnant, and the dock stamp actually decreased given the real estate condition right now and the increased interest rates over the last couple of years to stabilize the economy. We also had a significant adjustment to our resurfacing program in terms of lane mile requirements and the formula that is used for the allocations. We are required by Florida statute to maintain a certain quality percentage for our state highway pavement. And due to our current rating, they did have to make an adjustment to the lane mile requirements as well as the formula. For District 5, we gained more lane miles over the 5-year period, and there was an adjustment even to a reduction in some of the years. So what that cost us to do is we have to pivot on what we're including in our resurfacing projects In the past, that was the opportunity to be able to include additional items in our resurfacing project limits. And right now, we're really being strategic as to what we can add to those projects and prioritizing the needs of that corridor and that project with what we're putting together. It doesn't mean we're not doing it, but we're just being very strategic given the budget and the funding that is available. So there are adjustments to the resurfacing program as a result of that. Just as a side note, the resurfacing program is probably the largest program that we have in our work program, so it's fairly significant in terms of the funding. And then lastly, another consideration for balancing this tentative work program is bringing our contingency level back to a more responsible, I should say, level of confidence. I think in the last couple of years, we have seen with the variability of bid results and the cost increases, our contingency levels really dropped to critical low figures. We really took an effort of going through and preserving as much of the contingency that we could, that we're allowed. We're required to carry a certain level. And so we made sure that we'd at least carry that minimum in our work program to be able to carry some of those increases that we're still anticipating in the next year or so. And we do all of this. This is all done in tandem while we still maintain the focus of the FDOT compass for those 6 core elements that you see there. Still keeping in tune the communities are at the core. Safety is always a priority in our projects as we're determining what we can and cannot do. We want to continue to harden support resiliency for the region, as well as harden our supply chain, leverage technology wherever we can, and of course, develop the workforce both for the region as well for all of our partners in the area. Difficult part is always balancing the work program. Changes happen from one year to the other. So what you see on this slide are actually changes. These are deletions. These are actually programming that was removed from the upcoming 5 years, a tentative work program. However, what you see here, these are not things that were done because of balancing the 2 projects on the left-hand side, Orange County Safety Project and the Osceola County Preventive Maintenance for Culvert Rehabilitation. That is actually work that is being absorbed under different projects. So yes, those were deleted because they were standalone projects, but now it's being included in other projects within the upcoming 5 years. On the right-hand side, there was coordination with our aviation authority. This would be with the Seminole Orlando Sanford Airport, where they went ahead and deleted some of the capital grant funding that they had represented in the upcoming 5 years. The projects that you see here do relate to work program balancing. It's always a difficult task. There's only so much that you have that you can program against. Balancing and sometimes is a necessary evil. However, what we do try to do is impact projects with our deferrals. We were able to balance our work program this year with very minimal impacts to our projects. So these are the projects you see, 3 in Orange County and 1 in Osceola. We have an Add Lanes and Reconstruct project for 239422-1 on the top left. All of these deferrals are just 1 year, so I'll just start off with that. But that project was deferred from 27 to 28. We have the State Road 50 drainage improvements. This is on McGuire and State Road 50. This is a construction support that was also deferred just 1 year from 26 to 27. On the top right, we have Orange County 449214-1. This is an intersection improvement project where the construction was deferred from 25 to 26. And then bottom right, we have the John Young Parkway intersection improvement project. Right-of-way phases and construction on that was deferred 1 year in each of those.
You say that this is a 1-year referral, but I believe the Pleasant Hill Road was deferred previously, so I think it's a compounded.
For this cycle, it was deferred 1 year in the past, yes. And that is a consideration. If we have to face any kind of work program balancing, we take into account what the previous deferrals were on the project and also try to minimize that up as well.
And that's on the busiest road. Has some type of designation. Maybe Commissioner Arrington knows it because that's his district, but quite a bit of traffic at that intersection.
And acknowledged, noted. So we balance our work program on a year-to-year basis, and sometimes a year deferral, you're talking about June 30th to July 1st. So again, when we balance, we really want to make sure that we're mitigating that impact to the project to try to minimize that as much as possible. So that was 1792-439-200-1 Osceola County. This is the design phase for Add Lanes and Reconstruction on US 192. That was also a deferral for work program balancing. The remainder of the projects that you see here, one in Osceola and two in Seminole County, these were actually projects that were deferred at the request of the local agency. So they weren't quite ready, so they went ahead and made the request to defer those phases of the projects. 5-year outlook for the counties represented by MetroPlan region. You have Orange, Osceola, and Seminole, and here you see the annual totals for what we have programmed in the upcoming 5 across each of those. Overall, we're talking about $3 billion, a little bit over that, of funding that is represented in our upcoming 5-year work program. A little bit further breakdown of what that represents in terms of the work mixes or the type of projects that are represented in the work program. We have safety projects. This would be your urban corridor improvements, any kind of interchange or intersection improvements, operational complete streets, those type of elements. Over $220 million. Capacity, this would be adding more opportunity for vehicles on the roadway. You're over $1.5 billion for that work mix. Preservation, and this is where our resurfacing program falls under, as well as our bridge repairs and bridge rehabilitations. These are Florida statute right requirements. We have over $272 million represented in the upcoming 5 years. Multimodal, this would be your transit, aviation, and rail type programming, close to $700 million for those type of projects. Operations, traffic signals, that would be your traffic signals, your ITS improvements, any sort of traffic control, travel information type improvements. A little over $83 million there. Bicycle and pedestrian type projects, a little bit over 112 million, and then miscellaneous, basically your catch-all. This could be maybe electronic vehicle charging stations, which we do have some of that in the upcoming tentative, as well as rest areas. Anything that's not represented above, over $197.5 million. Key projects, it's a very robust work program for the 3 county regions, so we're not highlighting all of them. So we're just going over a few that are new to the work program and some large dollar ones. Here you have several resurfacing projects along within Seminole and Orange County. These range between 1.25 mile to 2.5 miles. And we have resurfacing along State Road 436 and 434 within Seminole. We have designed for those projects in the first year of the work program, which is 25, construction 2 years later in 27. And within Orange County, we have a resurfacing project along State Road 434 and another along State Road 15, US 1792 from Lee Road to Seminole County line. Again, similar schedule, first year design and then 3rd year construction. Couple more resurfacing projects. Here we're representing construction in 25 for the larger ones, but along one more for Orange County where we have the same design in 25 and construction 2 years later in 27. That is a resurfacing project along State Road 500, 441, 1792 from Osceola County line to north of Caroni Avenue or Drive, sorry. And then in Osceola County, we have 2 large construction projects in the first year of work program fiscal year 25. These are projects that are currently under design. That one is along US 192 and the other one's along State Road 15. And then the middle project there is one that is entering the work program with design in the first year and construction in the 3rd year. That is along State Road 600, State Road 500, north of Old Dixie Highway to south of Country Boulevard. Wanted to share a couple of bike path trail projects. Here we have extensions to the Shingle Creek Trail South phases that are adding to that. We have construction of these trail extensions in fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. That would be your first and your second year. Just want to make note that we have a lot more funding that's dedicated to studies as well as planning for more bike and path trails. This is just a representation of this project. Couple of urban corridor improvement projects. The one on the left-hand side is with City of Orlando, and on the right, it's with Orange County. These are urban corridor improvements, safety type projects. The preliminary engineering, which we designed, is funded in 29 for the left. And on the right-hand side project, we have designed in the first year 25, construction in 27. This one is a large project. This is with Seminole County. This is pedestrian tunnels that they will be constructing in fiscal years 26, which is the second year. This was an appropriation project. There's a small amount of the appropriation and the remainder of the funds are all being handled by Seminole County. Truck parking. We have a Seminole site that is currently under the design phase. It's under 30%. The right-of-way acquisition will be done under the I-4 project. Is currently partially funded in the current year, which is 24, and then also in 25, which is the first year of the work program. The truck and freight site analysis PD&E study is ongoing and in the final stages of this phase, completing the engineering environmental documentation, and is projected to be done by the summer of 2024. And lastly, this is just a very high level slide. We had the release of the Moving Florida projects. These are key projects in the region that really support congestion relief, and also support the economic vitality for our region. For District 5, we have the I-4 from Champions Gate to State Road 536 Osceola project, where we'll be constructing the lanes, adding odds lanes, as well as the express lanes in both directions. The design build contract is expected in spring of 24, with the construction to begin in 25. Some other Moving Florida projects in the area to help support with the region. We have the Poinciana Parkway Extension Connector, as well as the I-4 from 27 to Champions Gate. So overall, in summary, we have 52 priority projects funded within our tentative work program, totaling over $816 million. I'm very proud that we're able to accommodate those. Again, no deletions, just being able to defer to be able to balance and maintain these projects. We do want to share opportunities for other funding sources. Grants are a great way to get some additional funding or to find the funding to maybe some other sources that can't make it into the work program. Contact person is Alice Giuliani over at the district. The district supports those. We can provide a letter of consistency that can be attached with that grant. There was a previous MPO award, the Safe Streets for All with MetroPlan. So we know that those do come through. And there's several of them out there. You see they came out of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. There's Protect, which is a resiliency type of grant. Mega for the mega projects. Infrastructure, which could be for transportation and rail type. And the SS4A, which is the Safe Streets, Roads for All. But if you're interested, feel free to reach out to Alice Giuliani. And that concludes my presentation. I will just note back to the website. Here is the work program public hearing where you are able to review the information both by counter reports as well as in a GIS format. If you wanted to hone into a particular location to see a project, you feel free to do so at your own leisure. Any questions?
Catherine, thank you for such a robust amount of information. I almost feel like we rushed through it and we were kind of going back and forth because a lot of these projects we've been talking about for years. So
Right.
it isn't new information. It's just great to see it substantiated in writing and put here and put a dollar amount to it, which I know that Mr. Atkins had referred to as those are some of the concerns. Are there any questions or comments at this point? I'm sure that you all could follow up with Catherine too on any details in your specific
Absolutely.
counties.
Yes, feel free to reach out to me with my contact information.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure online that I didn't skip on anybody online that may have a question. Okay, CNN, thank you so much. We're going to move through very quickly to public comments in the general nature.
Madam Chair, we still have to hear from the Turnpike.
Oh, my apologies, Mr. Fine. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Siausi Fine, and I'm here to discuss the Turnpike's tentative work program. So in the MetroPlan Orlando area, the Turnpike is proposing to fund $664 million in major projects. As part of the Florida's Department of Transportation, Florida's Turnpike Enterprise considers the 5 pillars of the DOT compass when building the work program. The pillars are safety, resiliency, supporting a robust supply chain, technology, and workforce development, and that is all built around our communities. As one FDOT team, we follow the department's mission and vision as we help meet the state's transportation needs, ensure value to customers, protect investors, and manage the Turnpike in a business-like manner. We do all this by providing customer-oriented, environmentally sound, and user-financed facilities. Florida's turnpike system consists of limited access facilities and provides Florida's residents and visitors with a safe, efficient, and affordable means of travel. Turnpike facilities are in 6 FDOT districts and 20 counties in Florida. In Osceola, Orange, and Seminole counties, we have 127 miles of turnpike managed facilities. To help meet the state's transportation needs, the turnpike primarily receives funding through user tolls and concessions at our service plazas. According to our bond covenants, the turnpike must pay for operations and maintenance costs first. So this includes the cost to collect and process toll payments. Then we must pay off debt on bonds issued to construct major projects. It should be noted that due to our high credit rating, the turnpike has historically benefited from some of the lowest borrowing costs in the toll industry. So after that, we must invest our revenue into renewal and replacement projects. So these projects are our resurfacings or any recurring improvements on our roadways. Finally, the turnpike uses the remaining funds to pay for capital improvements. So these capital improvement projects are interchange and widening projects. Okay. So the turnpike has various ways of determining how projects get funded depending on project type. All our projects must demonstrate a transportation need, and then based on that transportation need, they are prioritized accordingly. Each year, we look at observed traffic data and future projections across the entire turnpike system. So that goes from North Florida to South Florida. We also consider environmental and economic feasibility. But of course, what's most important to the turnpike is stakeholder input, which we collect throughout the entire project development process. And also at meetings like MPO board meetings or MPO TAC and CAC meetings. So before I tell you about our projects in our work program, I'd like to talk about this blue document right here. So this is the Turnpike's tentative work program summary. This is a highlight document of the major projects in our work program. So just to discuss how this actual document works, it has 3 parts to it. So the 3 parts are, on page 1, you'll see that there's a table. Those are our current construction projects. These projects will be constructed within this fiscal year. Then from pages 2 all the way to page 15 or 14, these are projects that have construction funding within the 5-year work program. So they might not have construction within the current fiscal year, but they do have it within the 5 years encompassed in our tentative work program. And then on page 17 is a table that shows projects that have PD&E, design, or right-of-way funding, but do not have construction funding associated with the projects. So these projects are the ones that you can look forward to becoming part of the main tables of this document once they receive that construction funding. Okay, so now I'll just highlight some projects from the main tables within the MetroPlan Orlando area. So for the widening of the Turnpike main line from Parton Settlement to Osceola Parkway with interchange improvements at Osceola Parkway, there's construction funding in fiscal year 2026. And then, of course, I'm starting out with Osceola County first. And the funds that you see in the right-hand column, that's for any phases that are included. So for that first project, right-of-way and construction costs total $9 million. The second project on the slide is the widening of the Turnpike main line from US 192 to Parton Settlement Road with interchange improvements at US 192. This project has construction funding from fiscal year 2026 to fiscal year 2027. The final project on the slide is the Turnpike main line widening from milepost 239 to milepost 242. With the construction of the new full interchange at Nolte Road, which has design build funding in the fiscal year 2026. Staying in Osceola County, we have the resurfacing of the Southern Connector, State Road 417, from milepost 0 to milepost 4, which has construction funding in fiscal year 25. And then we have the Canoe Creek Service Plaza parking improvements, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2026. Now in Orange County, we have the construction of the new interchange on the Turnpike Main Line at Sand Lake Road, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2027. We have the interchange improvements on the Turnpike Main Line at State Road 528 and US 1792, which has construction funding from fiscal year 2027 to fiscal year 2028. Finally, on this slide, we have the construction of the new interchange on the Turnpike Main Line at the Tab Vineland Road, which is a reliever interchange, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2027. I had a couple other slides. Let me see if I can. Okay, oh yeah, that's where it was. So again, staying in Orange County, we have the Hempel Avenue Bridge replacement over State Road 408, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2027. We have the interchange improvements on the Turnpike Main Line at State Road 528, which has construction funding from fiscal year 2027 to fiscal year 2028. Oh, and then we have the construction of the new interchange on the Turnpike Main Line at Tap Island Road, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2027. Oh, let's switch. I'll just read it off here. So, okay, so staying in Orange County, we have the Hempel Avenue Bridge replacement over State Road 408, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2025. We have the Tismo interchange improvements on the Turnpike Main Line at State Road 50 in Ocoee, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2025. We have the Tismo interchange improvements on State Road 528 at John Young Parkway, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2026. And we have the Tismo interchange improvements on State Road 429 at US 192, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2025. And finally, we have the resurfacing of the Southern Connector from milepost 4 to milepost 6, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2025. Now in Seminole County, we have a singular project, which is the resurfacing of the Seminole Expressway from milepost 50 to milepost 55, which has construction funding in fiscal year 2025. So now I would like to discuss some projects that have funding that was either advanced, added, deleted, or deferred. So for the widening of the Turnpike Main Line from milepost 238 to milepost 239, design funding was advanced for this project to fiscal year 2027. For right-of-way, those funds were added to fiscal year 2029. And then, so the next project is the widening of the Turnpike Main Line from State Road 408 to State Road 429. And this project has right-of-way funding that was added to fiscal year 2029. And the next one is the mainline widening of State Road 429 from US 192 to Western Way. So design funding was deferred to fiscal year 2025, and right-of-way funding was deleted. And then we have the Western Beltway widening from Western Way to Sidell Road, which had design funding deferred to fiscal year 2025. And finally, we have the widening of the Seminole Expressway from State Road 434 to Lake Mary Boulevard, which has right-of-way funding that was deferred till fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2027. Okay. So for more information on all projects in the Turnpike's tentative work program, you can visit the FDOT Work Program Public Hearing website and download the District 5 Public Hearing Report when it becomes available. Turnpike's tentative work program projects can be found in this document right here, but also in the District 5 Public Hearing Report. And also on our website, floridasturnpike.com. So before I go, I'd like to leave you with a safety minute. The Florida's Turnpike Enterprise likes to encourage its customers with disabled vehicles on our roadways to stay safely in your vehicle if at all possible, and wait for help instead of getting out of your vehicle on our high-speed roadways. Turnpike's traffic management staff are watching roadside cameras 24 hours a day and will deploy a road ranger or an FHP officer to assist you quickly. You also have the option of dialing *347 or *FHP, and you can request that a road ranger or an FHP officer be sent to your location. But with that being said, again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to allow me to present to you today, and I will take any questions if there are any.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So in your project overview, you have some windings of the Turnpike to Parton Settlement Road. I have a question. I have an issue actually. We are widening Parton Settlement Road, and there's a bridge or overpass over the Turnpike that also needs to be widened. And we will have our lane windings completed before you have your work completed. So I was wondering if you could coordinate a little bit more closely with my team at Osceola County. I'll have them reach out to you. If possible, get that bridge widened sooner rather than later. Because otherwise, we're talking about major bottlenecks there. We're going to have a 4-lane road with a 2-lane overpass over the Turnpike.
I can definitely take your request to our team and let them know and see what we can do.
I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fine, your contact information is not on here, is it?
My contact information, so the TPO has it, the MPO has it, but I could provide it separately to send out.
I would, because I do have some questions, but I don't want to hold up the meeting, and so they're so specific that I'll follow up with you.
Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, as the board is disappearing. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We're going to move now to our final item, which is our time for public comment in the general nature. And if we have anybody in the audience currently, I want to make sure that the in-person meeting location is, please make sure you fill out the speaker card for MetroPlan Orlando. Miss Lisa, do we have any speakers?
Yes, the first one is Miss Joanne Canellis.
Okay, Miss Joanne, if you'll state your name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Joanne Canellis.
No, we can't. We need, there we go. Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can hear me now. Yes. Good. Well, I'm Joanne Canellis, 324 Claremont Avenue, Lake Mary, Florida, 32746. Yes, we do need the 24 hours train and bus service, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime. And we need it every 15 minutes for everyone, please. And I need the bus over at the South Country Club Road, the corner of South Country Club Road, and the by the park that right next to this duplex, please. And we need that the same way as any others. And we need it over at, we need the bus back to over at the Oviedo Boulevard, where I swim at and all this good stuff, by the aquatic center. And we need the school, we need to have the bus over also at the down to Lake Mary Prep Schools too, so I don't have to walk down there like that, because Field's not there anymore. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Joanne. Appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
comment.
We need every 15 minutes for everybody.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
do we have an additional comment?
Yes, Mr. David Bottomley.
Mr. David, are you present? There. Is he?
Turn me on.
Oh, you have to press the speaker button right
Oh,
there.
Now I'm on. David Bottomley, Woodbury Pine Circle, 30-year wheelchair driver, 50-year resident of Orange County. For Orange County, you're gonna hear this shtick again, so bear with me. The watch I'm wearing is a Garmin Instinct watch. It tracks me. And with that and a small compact camera, I take pictures of my track. A recent track was down at Alcoy Park, which is down the street from here, and I run into a very 25-year-old problem. A bus stop can consist of a pole in the ground, but the minute you add furniture of any sort, and this was according to the late Dean Perkins of FDOT, I will get to you in a minute. You make any improvements, it must become ADA compliant. Now, what I mean by that, Chapter 8, paragraph 810 describes it, a 5-foot landing pad at the curb and a pedestrian access route generally about 4 feet to a sidewalk. That's not there. What I did find out in researching this, and it's an updated Florida statute 337.408. And it says all installations shall be in compliance with all applicable laws and rules, including without limitations, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Municipalities and counties that authorize or have authorized a bench transit shelter to be installed within the rights of way of any road on the state highway system shall be responsible for ensuring that the bench or transit shelter complies with all applicable laws and rules, including without limitations, Americans with Disabilities Act, or shall remove the bench. So they got full control. If it's on a county, if it's on a state right of way, and it's in a county jurisdiction, it's a county's responsibility. In the case of Orange County, I did talk to the Director of Public Works, and they're working on it. Please make it ADA compliant. Now, what I have seen in some cases where there's been a metal bench put on a pad, Lynx has gone back and put a shelter in to make it compliant.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right, and I'm happy to get with you to follow up on that on our end of the county.
There's one more. I took the beep ride in Altamont Springs, and the suggestion I made to them was make the map a little bit more detailed and the icons on the map make it look like a bus stop.
Okay, Miss Virginia can take that because we just did a program with Beep, so she'll add that to the notes. Thank you very much, David. Miss Lisa, do we have any additional speakers? Okay, anyone online that would like to speak?
Madam Chair, there are no people with their hands raised online.
Fantastic. Are there any board member comments at this time with the few of us that are here? Okay. Seeing none, our next meeting will be December 13th at 9 a.m. We see you all and we are adjourned. A long meeting. Jeez.